throughout this particular book, he keeps quoting his grandfather, and he isn't really quoting his grandfather. What he's doing is, during the period when Attack was written, Romanians were very familiar with official pronouncements, which featured, banal quotations from the dictator. And these followed a formula which always ended with the words, "We quote the quote," we close the quote, that is, end quote. And Arrien uses this formula, to highlight the sort of denial of state authorities, to acknowledge abuses, etc., etc. So he's always quoting ostensibly from his grandfather, but the fact that he says, "We close the quote" after each one of these quotes is an indication to the reader of what he's really saying. The corpse is to the right of me, lying on a pile of books. At any other time, I would have hurried to rearrange the books on their shelves. Now all I can do is stare, dazed, at the man lying there in a pool of blood. His name is Valentin, but what he's doing in my house, and why he has a wound like this in his head, I couldn't tell, not even if I was being tortured. Which, to digress, reminds me of my grandfather, who, whenever people mentioned torture, only replied, revolting, end quote. For some minutes, I struggled to regain my composure, like a patient who's anesthetized by mistake and subjected to an operation meant for someone else. I'm trying to make sense of what happened around me, but I can't. This is always happening in key moments of my life. My brain decides not to disturb me with its presence and hands me a sabbatical notice. Of course, this request is usually refused, and in exchange, I serve it with a last warning. This time, I feel a terrible pain in my head, and there's such a bitter taste in my mouth that I decide to make a quick dash to the kitchen for a cube of sugar. I've never attempted such an arduous task. Instead of running, I crawl to the kitchen, leaning on the walls. The floor is heaving as if I'm on a ship, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear a voice from somewhere shouting orders through a megaphone. Orders like, "Climb the mast and report whether land is in sight."